Hello and welcome to the AV Forums podcast, streaming live on Wednesday, the 3rd of February, 2021. And joining me in this edition, Ed Selley.
Everyone remember where we parked.
Kaz Harlow.
Nobody pays any attention to you unless you swear every other word.
And Steve Withers.
Admiral, there be whales.
Thanks for giving it away, Steve. It's appreciated. So, streaming once again, it is... well, we managed to get out of January. The 374 days of January are now done. We're into level 2 of 2021. Not done much yet again this week. I think this section of the podcast is going to get smaller and smaller as we go on. So, Steve, why don't you inform everybody of the amazing things that you've been up to this week?
I'll tell you what I've been up to, and it's not very interesting, but in my home cinema, I have a number of black rugs to make the floor black and also to absorb any reflections from the floor. Useful tip there for you. But the buggers keep moving. Every time I got up after I've watched a film, I'd have to get up and pull them all taut again because they basically shifted their way up the room and have all ruffled. So it was today. I got a bag of self-tapping wood screws and an electric screwdriver, and I basically screwed the damn things down to the floor. So they're not going anywhere now, and it was quite satisfying.
You see, this could have been the plot of a low-budget horror movie where you discovered they're actually alive. Well,
sometimes it feels like it, particularly when the subs have been quite active. They seem to have gradually moved to pull them up the room. So that's what I did. Otherwise, I haven't really done much of interest, I have to say, which I know it's a sad indictment of my life, but I think we can all say we're in similar boats at the moment.
I made the purchase of the year so far. I mean, I know we're only 337 days into 2021, but I bought 2 pairs of Fruit of the Loom jogging pants, and I've got to say it's the best purchase I have made in a long time because they are uber comfortable, and with us all sitting in the house and so on, then I thought it was a purchase I needed to make. And I've got to say, for a fat boy like me, they're dead comfy. So if you're looking for things to do during lockdown and wear, Fruit of the Loom jogging pants, highly recommended. 10 out of 10. What else have I been doing? Well, it's Super Bowl week, so it's Super Bowl Sunday, this coming Sunday, if anybody's interested in American football. It is going ahead. I'm not sure if they're going to have a crowd or not, because some of the games this year, they have had, like the Premiership, they have had some crowds in, and then other days, the other games, there's no crowd, and it's crowd noise. So it's the biggest game of the year, obviously. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Kansas City Chiefs. Tom Brady against Mahomes. It looks like it's going to be an absolutely cracking game. The games this year have been really good. So even if you're not into American football, I think it'll be a big enough spectacle this time around because Brady's going for Super Bowl number 7.
Is he just ridiculously good?
Tom Brady, well, he used to play for the New England Patriots. And
just see what's come up.
What's that?
It's a picture you feel, isn't it?
Yeah. Is he modelling it? I can see your iPhone in the pocket.
I'm lost. What is going
on?
on?
Are you looking at the YouTube screen or Zoom?
The actual YouTube feed.
No.
Well, you need to look at the YouTube feed then. Because
why would I want to look at the YouTube feed?
Well, that's what I look at.
I'm looking at it now. Yeah. Stuart will pay for that, You don't get away with doing stuff like that behind my back. What was I saying? Yeah, even if you don't have any interest, I mean, Tom Brady's gone for Super Bowl number 7. So he used to play for the New England Patriots. They had a bit of a dynasty there, where they won Super Bowl after Super Bowl. They went to more Super Bowls, lost a few, but they won 6. So this is Brady's number 7.
But didn't he go to an also-ran team, and now he's taken them to the Super Bowl? Yeah,
he went to the Buccaneers, and they basically built a team round about them. I mean, some of the players that he played with at New England also moved with him, a couple of the wide receivers and so on. But yeah, definitely, it's going to be a great game because the Chiefs won it last year, and the Chiefs are now back again. They only lost 2 games the whole season, the Chiefs, and you've got Patrick Mahomes, who is a young quarterback, and he's going to be the next Tom Brady. So you've got, the old-timer professional
80s film style, Master and Apprentice.
Master and Apprentice. So it's going to be good. I don't know who's doing the halftime show this year. I haven't paid any attention to that. But either the Super Bowl's the most boring game you ever see because it's dead tight because they want to, the teams really want to win, or you get a game where it just goes batshit crazy. And I think this year it's going to go batshit crazy. I think you've got two of the best quarterbacks
the kiss
ever.
of death there. Now it's going to be
Probably
the world's first 0-all draw.
Probably. And if you want to, I've found this week and see how fast Stuart is at getting it up on the screen, but there is a YouTube channel called The Walking Commuter. And if you're feeling a bit anxious or whatever during lockdown, you just want to relax and watch something for an hour or so, just to ease your mind, just relax and forget about things. This guy, he basically goes walking around New York, Manhattan. And I watched the one over the weekend there, mesmerized because it was snowing in New York, like how we see it in the films and stuff. And it's just him with an iPhone on a gimbal walking around New York, and he's pointing out obviously the landmarks and that kind of thing. Walks through Central Park. He actually did the route that we did, Steve, from the Dakota Building through Central Park, down Fifth Avenue, down to the New York Library, and down Empire State and that kind of thing. And I just found it really relaxing. So if you're looking for something different to watch on YouTube, then you could do that. And the guy makes an absolute fortune through.
It's funny he gets mugged on one of his walks.
I don't think he will, because obviously he lives in Manhattan, but he makes a fortune through
There's
donation.
plenty of places in Manhattan where you can get mugged.
To be fair, it's just
I'd like to point out that Harlem is on Manhattan Island.
It's important that you also spell walking correctly there, because the YouTube channel that's close to that is really not the same thing.
No, it's not. But anyway, that's what I've been doing. Other than that, than working and climbing the walls. I really am climbing the walls at the minute. I need to get out, but that's not going to happen because it's now going to snow for the next week up here.
Excellent. Yeah.
So
nice.
So yeah, Ed, what have you been doing?
I've been doing lots of work for you and other people. I mean, it's tragic to say, but it's what's actually fundamentally keeping me sane at this point, that I don't concentrate on much else. I just get stuff done, and it allows me to ignore the fact that I'd really like to go to the pub and see other people and do all sorts of other things. Other than that, I have been experimenting with some, as I said to you a couple of podcasts ago, I thought I had sort of reached a plateau of stuff I've been cooking. It was becoming a bit of a groove. Rather than do anything truly risque, I've just been experimenting with slightly different ingredients and so on and so forth. So I've been doing a bit of that. I had to go to Big Yellow Self-Storage earlier this evening, in fact, which is the first time I've been since I was using it on a regular basis, which was very nostalgic. And other than that, it's just we were discussing this before you came on. We won't go into the same level of excruciating detail, but it does give a nice segue doesn't give a nice segue for Steve because he's already been on. I have now added Sudden Impact to the list of Dirty Harry films I've got round to watching. I haven't treated myself to the Deadpool yet because you've assured me that it's awful, and I haven't.
Saving the best till last.
I haven't been drunk enough to justify trying to watch that, so that's had to wait. But no, more same old, same old. Someone mentioned, other people were mentioning earlier in the comment thread. Yeah, you get both cats this evening. It's not normal actually for them to both be sat there like idiots, but there was a lot of paper on the table because my son had been drawing, and obviously because they're idiots, they enjoy sitting on paper. So there you go. That's both cats. Mother in black and white, son who is actually sat on me at the moment in black. He is in focus in reality, but it's just impossible to take a photo of both of them at the same time, because if one cat is in focus, the other one isn't. That's just what life with a black cat is all about. So there you go.
And for those listening on the audio version, you might need to have a look at the video just to see.
Well, yes. Essentially, I did say that people keep on going, oh, can we see the cats and do without the background? I don't really want to get shot in the background because fundamentally it looks a bit weird. So the background's there. That's what both of them look like. And the black cat in the photo is currently stomping around on me as I speak.
Good. Kaz, what have you been up to?
So I think a while back I mentioned on the podcast that my only kind of social activity is playing poker with some of my friends, virtual poker, with my old real poker friends. And we've upgraded. We now actually play some Stadia games.
Bit poker.
So yeah.
What's a Stadia game, Kaz?
So Stadia is that online.
Oh, Google Stadia.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
Stadia,
Yeah, fine. Sorry. I thought it was a version of poker. So,
No, it's online gaming, so it got a pass because it doesn't involve an actual console in the house. It's just this magical controller that turned up one day, and yeah, it's great. So we've been playing Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which has been a lot of fun. We're all utterly incompetent at it, but it doesn't seem to matter.
You just get slaughtered by 12-year-olds. That's what happens every time I play online.
No,
games.
we never play against strangers. We just play AI.
I mean, I briefly signed.
But we still get slaughtered.
I briefly signed into the Gran Turismo online stuff and just got absolutely annihilated by a child.
Yeah, that's why
that's
I think that's why we never ever do it, because it's so uncomfortable when you join those really big groups, and there's always someone who's 12 times as good as you, and
they're usually 12 years old.
Yes, 12 years old. Yes, and
come on, children are the only people that have enough time to reach Jedi status at these games.
Well, I get 2 hours every Saturday where basically I can get online and Saturday evening and play this, and it's been really good, and it's rekindled my love of attack helicopters. When I was
to be
a
fair,
kid.
I don't know if you've just seen, Kaz, Richard Sim has just defecated in your cereal. Google shut down the in-house development company that makes games for Stadia today, so you'll be back to poker quite soon, apparently. So.
I'll still play this basically until they actually turn off the platform. I mean, that's deeply depressing, but to be honest, I'm not, I don't need a new game every month. I could play the same game as long as my friends join in. I could play the same game for a very long time.
I have to be honest, when you started this thing, I'm just like, we've been working with my poker friends. I thought you were going to say that one of them owed you lots of money, so you took a rare trip out of the house to break his ankles.
No, we always played for pennies.
Oh, well, that's
it was never about the money. We spent more money on food and drink, but now obviously it's nothing. It's just virtual coins. But it's been a lot of fun. As I say, it's rekindled my love for attack helicopters, because one of the helicopters you can get in it is not a real helicopter, but is a helicopter I had as a toy as a kid.
Is it Airwolf?
No, so this is the thing, and I got to put it to everyone else because someone else must know the answer. In Russia, they went nuts for helicopters to try and compete with the American ones, like the Apache, which is like the king of helicopters. And it was Kamov that did the majority of their helicopters, like the Hokum.
Yeah.
All of their helicopters, they tried to do double rotors.
They didn't try. They did. All of them counter-rotating. So
with,
they don't have
so
to
no
have tail.
No tail rotor, much faster, counter-rotating. How does it work?
Well, essentially, all the tail rotor does on a helicopter is counter.
No. I get that. How do you get the counter? I mean, I look at it all day.
You have to build the world's most horrifying gearbox.
Exactly. It's just insane. Like, why would you do that?
Well, because
you've got two blades going opposite ways.
Yeah. Okay. As you might imagine,
it's called engineering, Kaz.
All helicopters.
It sounds like
all helicopters have a terrifying gearbox. So simply making it more terrifying doesn't necessarily reduce
you're kind of making it like 5 times as terrifying, because you're having them spin in opposite directions.
Well, it's just one shaft inside another. But yes, you're right. If you land an explosive ordnance in that vicinity of that, all things go wrong very, very quickly.
But even with a normal helicopter, though, if you hit the tail rotor, then
this is true.
Yes,
and it must be said, as far as I know, it's not really my specialist subject anymore. As far as I know, Kamov stuff doesn't fall out of the sky particularly often. I mean, they made an anti-submarine helicopter which they sold to all manner of places around the world, and they essentially seem to keep going on very.
That was the Black Shark, I think, wasn't it?
Regular maintenance. Oh, well, no, the one for anti-submarine stuff is actually, it's quite an adorable sort of lumpy looking thing. I see we've already managed to bore Steve into actually...
But the one you can get in the game anyway is a made-up KA-58, which I don't think they ever went into development. It's supposed to be
they developed it, but
equivalent to the Comanche, which also died, but I remember having a model as a kid and thinking that is insanely good. It has no tail rotor. It's a stealth helicopter. It's really fast, got a shed load of guns, and it's got 2 rotors sitting on top of each other. And I don't know how that works. But
it's a counter-rotating gearbox.
No, you're just saying the same words. What I more mean is it's an impressive feat of engineering. I don't mean I don't know how it works. I mean it's
is that the one? Has
impressive.
Stuart found the right one for you on the picture?
Is it? It's not a picture of me in pajamas.
No. It's a
I'm
picture of-
joking. I haven't seen it.
It's on the
Oh, wow.
YouTube feed. You're not looking.
I know I'm there. It's not loading.
This is great for people that are listening audio wise.
All right. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Fine. Well, shall we move on from late Soviet era attack helicopter prototypes?
I mean, obviously Steve's not here at the minute, and I was asked about the car, so I'll quickly give you a car update because I think it was Fueled Funny said Mark 1 update. There seems to be a delay in electronics worldwide at the minute when it comes to car production. So I think there's been some delays because I haven't been given my VIN number, and I should have my VIN number by now. So to answer your question, I don't know. It's down speculatively to be built on the 5th of March. Whether it is or not, no idea. But I'm not trying to think about that too much because obviously then I start obsessing and start looking it up. And once I've got the VIN number, I'll be able to do all the tracking as well. So
it's actually, they probably learned this from last time. So the VIN number exists. They just haven't told you.
Yeah, because they know I'm going to be. They know I'm going to be sitting watching for the
they're
boat
going to
coming
wait.
in.
They're going to wait until it's in the dealers, and they're going to go, "Oh, by the way, your car's here."
No, I don't think they'd be that cruel. But once you get the VIN number in, I can track it all the way through. I've already got someone on the inside saying if they can manage, they'll get some photographs of it coming down the production line as well. So, but I need my VIN number for that to happen. But anyway, that's the update for John there. Right, moving on. If you enjoy what we're talking about here on the podcast, and
God knows you can't do that.
And that's a big
and you're interested in how helicopters with dual rotors work, then of course you can support us. So we talk even more rubbish every week. So join us on Patreon. You can do that on a regular basis, £3 a month. Patreon.com/AV Forums. Become a patron. You do get some nice bits and pieces ahead of time. And that will develop during the year as we add more features and so on. We also ask you for your opinion, and we'll do that again tonight as well, a little bit later on in the podcast. What do you think of the podcast? How do you think we can improve it? What we should be talking about, subjects we should cover, and that kind of thing. You can do all that, and we ask you for your feedback, certainly of our patrons at the minute. And there's a nice little forum in there where you can ask questions and so on. So if you want to do that, it's £3 per month. If you just want to donate, then you can do that as well at streamlabs.com/AV Forums. You can donate any amount you like. And by donating, you help us improve the site speed, features, and so on. And eventually, at some point, we might do a decent podcast if you pay us enough. Since we were last live, I think it's an impossibility for us to do a perfect podcast. But anyway, since we were last live, donations. David Nemo, we're going to come back to David as well. He's made 2 recent donations and he's asked 2 questions. One's under hardware. This one, he's donated £10. Thank you very much, David. It really is appreciated for that. And the question is, all you guys, what are your top 3 films? He says his top 3 are 3 Days of the Condor, Empire Strikes Back. Strikes Back.
Type this. We've got Condor instead of Condor. Strikes. And, David Nimmo. Any relation to Derek, David? Out of curiosity.
And he said Riddick as well. So Riddick, Empire Strikes Back, and Day of the Condor is his 3 favourite films. Empire Strikes Back would be in my top 3. The other 2 tend to change on a regular basis for me. Anybody else want to jump in there?
Well, Star Wars and Jaws are definitely.
Oh yeah, Jaws is in my top 3. Yeah. I
don't know about the third one though.
Apocalypse Now is my favourite film.
I could guess what yours was going to be.
And then after that, it does vary. I'm tempted simply because every single time I watch it, I enjoy it immensely. I'm tempted to say that Super Troopers is because it's not a great film at all, but it reminds me of a time when the first time I watched it was at one of the happiest points of my existence. So, that was...
Kaz, what about you?
It's top 3 is impossible. But if I'm going to pin it to some answers, then Heat and Leon have been in there pretty much since they came out. And the third one should probably go to...
The Last Days of American Crime.
Takashi Kitano's Sonatine. I want to put Drive in there, but Sonatine has been in there for as long as Heat and Leon. They all came out around the same time.
Thank God nobody said Shawshank Redemption.
John,
the most overrated pile.
Much as I love Redux, it's the actual standard cinematic cut. All the rest of it, it's worth watching once, but it's the cinematic cut.
The theatrical cut is the version I prefer as well. Yeah, he had too long to think about it after he'd released the theatrical cut. And kept, sort of second guessing himself. Someone's mentioned it. I might throw in Theodore Rex as my third. Stone Cold classic.
Quality. Yeah.
Phil, surely Back to the Future is one of yours, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's top 3 though. That's the thing. I do love it.
Near perfect film, though.
I do love it, and it is a near perfect film. I think I'd put. If I was going to put it in, it'd have to be the trilogy, though. I think, not just
that's cheat, though, isn't it? Then?
I know.
Godfather Part 2. I might chuck that one in as my.
Yeah, right. There you go. So hopefully, David, that answers your question, because Ed doesn't watch much film. So getting one film at Ed is.
He's been watching the same film for the last 40 years.
He has, yeah.
Well, no, as I say, I've been slowly working my way through the incredibly up-to-date Dirty Harry.
Yeah, sorry, I should point out to Ken, son of SJ, that when Ed mentions Deadpool, he means Dirty Harry's 5th film.
Yeah, I read that as well.
Not Deadpool or Deadpool 2, the films with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, which I have seen.
1988's Dirty Harry classic, The Deadpool, starring Clint Eastwood, Liam Neeson, and a young Jim Carrey.
Yeah, he is. It is a young Jim Carrey. Yeah, and a harpoon gun. Not to spoil it.
Yes,
and a radio
and a small remote control car.
Oh yeah, yes.
Which I'm not kidding. I saw that at the cinema in '88, and I was very tempted to walk out during them. I thought, I can't take any more of this rubbish. Yeah, it was one of the few times in my life where I've ever seriously considered walking out of a film because I thought this is absolute cobblers.
Right. Well, there we go.
Yeah, Ed, do you want to do the next one?
Next one of what? Oh,
the donation channel.
Hold on.
Jose Barrea.
Yes,
Barella?
hang on. Right.
Jose Barella. Sorry, that would be the correct pronunciation, wouldn't it? In Spanish.
2-channel amp you recommend. KF reference 32. It doesn't necessarily. Are these the options? Lingdorf SA2.
He says two-channel amp you recommend, and he's saying he's got a KF reference 32C LS.
Looks like he's using an X7200 WA with a couple of with the Lindorf maybe running the left and right channels. I'm not quite sure.
Oh right, so
it's got a motor.
Oh right,
it's got a lot of kit in there,
I see. So Rotel makes you Arcam P8. No, right. Of those three, I'd go with the Rotel because they have a massive point to prove and they are gloriously over-engineered. I do intend to look at the integrated for AV forums as soon as there is actually one to look at. Everything, all the feedback from colleagues of mine who have been playing about with them, they have been designed and engineered regardless of cost. It's to remind people that Rotel are back in business in a big way. So of those choices, it would be the Rotel, no question. I would suggest, these aren't inconsequentially expensive amplifiers. I would suggest, depending on what you're looking at, Musical Fidelity does make some astonishing stereo amplifiers, and slightly further up the budget range, the new Chord Ultima power amps are ridiculously good as well. So those are all worth looking at, but the Rotel would be my choice from those.
I can chuck in my 2 cents if you like, because both the Lindorf SDA2400 and the Emotiva have been sitting in my own cinema for the last year, and both are excellent. One's digital, one's Class AB. Depends on your preference, I guess. But the Emotiva, I think I'd probably say the appeal of that is you can obviously expand it if you wanted to and add more channels at a later date, which is quite a nice touch.
Yeah,
I like. But and the Arcam PA42, I haven't heard that, but I did have the Arcam P429, was it? It was a 4-channel Class G power amp, and that was
I've got the Arcam PA720 in at the minute, which is a 7-channel Class G, and it's a stonking amplifier. Really
tripped your fuse box yet, is it? Because you used to trip mine every 5 minutes.
No, it hasn't, and it doesn't get very warm either.
That's presumably because your electronics date back to Jane Eyre.
Well, I don't know. I think my house.
No, Steve's
I think my house is just as old as Steve's. To be honest with you,
I've got a modern, flick up and down fuse box thing.
Yeah.
It's the switches, but I think the wiring itself is well dodgy.
Yeah.
I've got a wire breaker in mine.
Anyway, from fuse boxes to patrons. Don't know how we get there. But anyway, Brian Drout became a patron. Thank you very much. V2 API became a patron. Big Fingers became a patron. Josie V and Adrian Calif.
That might be the guy that donated the £5 and asked.
I think it was.
Similarity in names.
So, the same Josie there, hopefully.
It's only Jose if he's Portuguese. If he's Spanish or Mexican, it'll probably be Jose.
Thanks for that, Steve. Right, so there you go. Anyway, that's your donations this week. Thank you very much. It is appreciated. And keep them coming in.
Adrian Caliph.
Yeah, I've already mentioned Adrian Caliph.
Did you?
I did mention him, yeah, but somebody was speaking over the top of me. There we go, anyway.
Just
thanks for your
get your pronunciation correct. That was all.
Thanks for your support. Growing AV4, it helps us grow AV4.
Are we at the creative differences phase of this professional relationship?
We shall never work together again.
I mean, on the
obviously, I'd be a lot more upset if I wasn't so heavily sedated.
On the plus side, presumably this means at some point we turn out Abbey Road, but then one of us has to get shot.
Probably not. I've got a real bone of contention with Abbey Road. It's an absolutely brilliant album. But why they stuck that little bit of Her Majesty at the end really annoys me, because it should end. The last Beatles album should end with a song called The End.
Every single Beatles album is condemned to have. I mean, Revolver is one of the single most perfect pieces of popular music ever created, and it still has Yellow Submarine sat in the middle of it like a freshly crimped turd.
A few quid to Ringo, didn't they?
So that's the nature of how it works. Right? Sorry, we're 26 minutes in and we've achieved little. So
yeah. So if you like the podcast, then please do hit that like button. I see there's loads of you watching at the minute, probably thinking, "What the hell is this?" I've tuned into.
What have we signed up for?
But if for some strange reason you have enjoyed it so far, then do hit the like button. It really does help us out. We've got competitions, so we have got something useful that you could win. So, Kaz, tell us all about it.
Sure, you can win a Denon Home soundbar 550 worth $599.
Oh, nice. Brand new. That's
nice.
Just come out. Literally just come out.
Yeah, you
haven't even tested that yet.
Yeah, so that's a nice bit.
Great price.
The usual bunch of 4K Blu-ray competitions. Criterion's January titles are still out. Watch out for February titles. They'll go live this week. Batman: Soul of the Dragon, Mask of the Red Death, and a copy of 2012 in 4K and Star Trek Picard Season 1 on Blu-ray exclusively for our patrons. So head over to avforums.com/competitions to enter. All competitions open to eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK. Previous winners: Drongo won Criterion's November titles, Irishman, Girlfriends, and 5 Easy Pieces on Blu-ray. Tux 1977 won Jackie Chan's Vanguard on Blu-ray. Apologies for that. Sarah 1978 won a copy of Arrow's Tremors limited edition 4K box set.
I hope she appreciates that.
Yeah, apologies if that doesn't turn up. That was nothing to do with and
that might have got lost in the post.
Yeah. Beefy B won the Patreon exclusive prize of Arrow's Crash limited edition.
That might have got lost in the post too.
Yeah, that looks amazing. And it definitely it just didn't fit in the mailbox.
I have both those sets and they are superb. I mean, not just the films are great, but also the whole package is really nice.
I had both those sets. Stay tuned for the podcast exclusive to win a copy of Muscle on Blu-ray. I'll note that 15 people have entered and only 40% of them have got the right answer.
Well, this is on occupational hazard when you're simply guessing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although it's disappointing that it's not 50-50. Presumably it's only an A-B answer.
It's three. There's three answers.
Actually, no, in that case, the odds are pretty good then. That's not
the
bad.
odds are good, but I give questions where you just simply can't guess the answer. There's no answer that looks really dumb. So
it literally is a guess. When do you put these competitions up? How long do people have to wait for the podcast to come around?
What for the normally Monday night, Tuesday morning. So you only have to wait a day.
They have to wait till the Wednesday before they can.
Yeah, I mean I suppose you just can't wait. They got to enter it. I got to enter it now. I mean, you can't enter it again, so you could wait. I mean, anyway, it's up to you guys. You can keep entering it. I guess 40% is better than that.
Right. After all this, we might actually do some podcasting. So stick around because we'll be back in a second.
Who knows where we're going next?
With some hardware. So, like I say, we are looking for your feedback when it comes to the podcast. We're going to change things up slightly. I think some people panicked thinking that we were going to drop reviews altogether from the podcast. Looking at some of the comments that was on the thread last week, don't panic. We're not going to completely remove reviews from the podcast. It's just we're not going to do as many of them where we sit and basically cover the same points that we cover
what's already on
in the written review.
page.
We will give you a little bit more insight that's probably not in the review and talk about some of the quirks and so on that we have found with the products, as well as giving you a summary. It's just when I said we weren't going to do as many reviews, we weren't going to get rid of them all. But if you do have some ideas of what you'd like us to talk about in the podcast, then please let us know. And the best way to do that is not in the chat window on YouTube, is actually to go to the forum. If you click on the front page podcast item, it'll take you to the thread. Or if you're looking at the thread list, or the forum list, we're right down the bottom. So you can't miss us. The sticker's right down the bottom of the forum. So if you head down there, you'll see the podcast forum. You click in there, click the podcast, and give us your feedback. Let us know what you think we should be talking about, any subjects you want us to go over, any items that you're not 100% sure of and you want to ask us questions about or ask us to explain it a little bit more, something like PQE2F. What is it? We can sit and go through that and hopefully demystify some of these subjects for you as well. So any ideas like that, then please go to the thread and leave your feedback in the thread. I think that is the easiest way for everybody that obviously watches us on YouTube, but also the 90% of you who listen to the audio-only version of the podcast. You'll be able to find that on EV Forums and also leave us your feedback there. So moving on to our subject this week, it did come from one of our supporters, Pulp Fiction. He has supported us quite a bit on the podcast. Thank you very much. Fred is his real name. And his question was...
His name's not Pulp.
No.
Mr. Fiction.
I and many of your listeners only really have one suitable room for our TV and speakers. So I thought it might be interesting to have a discussion on speakers or amplification which works for not only home cinema but also stereo listening. And I guess this is a myth, Steve, that's been going around since the dawn of ProLogic sound, basically, in the home. There's always been this myth that if you have a home cinema system, it's no good for audio. And if you're buying decent components to start with and you're buying from a name in terms of speakers, a well regarded brand or whatever, something like my first sort of setup, really serious setup, was Bowers & Wilkins 600 series speakers.
We're using floor standers or
stand mounts, 602 stand mounts, and the center speaker, and I had a Pioneer rear projection TV, 16:9 rear projection TV, which looked like a piano. So I had that set up, and it was great for stereo and for home theater, home cinema. The speaker doesn't know if it's home theater or stereo that you're listening to, so it's not going to suddenly say, "Oh well, I don't like stereo, so I'm not going to perform at my best." I think the weak link in the chain has been AVRs, because they do go through sound tuning, and you will find if you take Denon and Marantz, for example, they do deliberately tune the Denon product to sound a bit more forceful, a bit more impactful for movie soundtracks. Whereas the Marantz is tuned a lot more, certainly in the UK, a lot more for fidelity and music playback and so on. So I think, in my opinion, that's where the weak link is. I mean, your speakers perform as well as they can. Most speakers will perform in a home cinema environment equally as well as for stereo. So I think really it's the electronic side of things where you need to be paying a little bit of attention to get decent components there that are going to perform really well for home theater and for home cinema and stereo. And of course, there are now dedicated products. I mean, I've had a few of them in. Steve's got some in at the minute that are high-end home theater, but also is stonking when it comes to stereo playback. I'm thinking of the Lingdorf processors.
Yeah, I mean, the Lindorf. Sorry, go on.
And I've also got the Arcam AV40 processor in at the minute. And again, it's more than competent with...
What about NAD you tested, wasn't
and
either?
NAD, well, I was having this discussion with Steve, actually. Was it Monday or we were having this discussion? We were talking about processors and amplifiers and so on. And I think if it was my own money at this moment in time, and I was going out and I was going to buy something, I mean, the Lingdorfs are out of my price range. There's no way I could afford something like that. I would pick up the NAD. I would go for the NAD 778. T778 in my system, if I was looking for something at the minute to run the MKs that I have, both for music and movies. I just thought it was a stonking product, and absolutely. And if you want to add extra power to that, then Steve, you've been looking at their power amp as well at the minute, haven't you? So you're going to do a review for us.
Yes, the M28, which is a new power amp which uses the Purify Eigentakt digital technology and is unbelievably powerful and can genuinely deliver 200 watts, more than that actually, to all 7 channels simultaneously.
Did you use the word volcanic?
I didn't use the word volcanic, but that's a good one. Yes, so that combined with the NAV would be with the processor would be a fantastic combo.
Yeah. And so you don't have to spend a fortune to get both. I think where you might have issues, Ed, is more in the £1,000 and under market. If you're looking at AVRs, they're not.
This is true, but then interestingly, Adrian Califf has in the comments has bought a Musical Fidelity M2 SI. Now there's a review for this in the tank, ready to go up. Actually, don't worry, Adrian, you've done well. It's a great amplifier. That's got an AV bypass and lots of these other the alternative, and it's not an as elegant a solution as just picking one all-conquering box, but there is a swathe of stereo amplifiers which have a direct input. So when you're watching AV, they're a power amplifier, just powering your front 2 loudspeakers, but then you flick to any other input and they assume full control with their own volume control, and then they just crack on being a stereo amplifier. So that's another option to consider as well. And if we are talking at that price point, I mean, something like the M2 SI, I mean, Musical Fidelity only claims it's about 72 watts, something like that. But it's by the standards of anything under £1,000 these days, it is enormously grunty. It swings a huge amount of current. So if you have a receiver with pre-outs and you're happy with how it performs, and let's face it, unless you suddenly urgently need HDMI 2.1 or something like that, we haven't had any seismic shift in specifications recently. It might be something to consider, or adding a dedicated stereo power amplifier, but they're a little bit rarer. So those are options for you to consider as well. And they, especially if you're prepared to have a look in the classified and consider your used options, there are some phenomenally cost-effective ways of doing that. Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of options there, Steve. Obviously, I've only touched on a few of them. Any other options you could think of?
Well, I mean, Ed touched on it as well, which is if you're going for a single box solution and you want something that can do movies and music, an AVR that's got a direct mode is great because it bypasses the video circuitry and you basically just use it for listening to music. What I used to do was, like you, I had a 600 series, but I had left and right with floor standers. So when I was watching a movie, I set the crossovers and obviously the LFE was going to the sub. But then when I was listening to music, I just had the left and right floor standers and nothing else. I know a lot of, I know Ed's probably going to chime in on this, but a lot of hi-fi purists don't like, combining speakers with a subwoofer when you listen to music. But if you've got
go with what works. Go with what. This is the thing. One of the things that frustrates me. Conversation for another time. In a perfect world, no, there are solutions that are more optimized. But you go with what works in your room, and you go with what works with your budget. You don't hang on to some imaginary notional ideal. It's interesting, Mr. H. I've been looking hard at the NAD, but the owner's thread talk of bugs really put me off. Phil, you. Being honest, you found that there were one or two things that were odd about NAD, but they largely fixed them during the time it was with you, didn't they?
They did, yeah. I mean, there's still the little pop when you switch it on initially, but it's not something that's going to damage your speakers or anything like that. I mean, it's really quite quiet. There was the issue when switching inputs that sometimes you got a little bit of a pop, but a lot of high-end stuff does that. I mean, you had an issue recently, Steve, did you not, where you're switching to DTS and it would make a noise? Was that the Lindorf?
Lindorf, they did a firmware update, and after the firmware update, sometimes when it was locking onto the Atmos soundtrack, there'll be for a second or two, but they fixed that now. But yeah.
So I would
get things like this sometimes.
The NAD doesn't have any bugs that would put me off spending $2,500 on it of my own money. That's how much it impressed me, and the performance far outweighed any issues like that. I noticed that Licensed Taxman also mentions THX processing. Well, THX used to be, a
big deal.
A big deal because they were doing stuff that did help. So in the days of Pro Logic, you had mono surrounds. They did add processing in there that gave the feeling that the surrounds were not mono. You were getting slightly discrete sound. It wasn't discrete, but they made it appear that way. And the other thing that they did was re-equalization, because back in the day, the soundtracks that you got in the cinema sometimes ended up on the home version on Laserdisc or whatever, and the re-EQ was to take that top end and roll it off slightly, because it would have more top end, because if it was a cinema soundtrack, it's got to come through the screen because all the speakers are behind the screen. So it was EQ'd in such a way that for obviously,
is that right?
Yeah. So obviously for cinema presentation, it had more in the top range, whereas the THX post-processing used to take that out again for home use. But now, there's no issues with that. And in fact, it's probably gone the wrong way these days, where they're actually filtering some of the soundtracks. And actually, I think it was Richard Sim that pointed out that actually in the manual for Dolby Atmos creation, it actually rolls the bass off. And that's probably why a lot of these discs that are coming out with the bass filtered, it might just be the fact that obviously they're doing it to the standard that Dolby set. So that could be an issue there. But anyway, we're getting off track with that. But that's why THX is not around anymore, because things have moved on since THX was relevant in those terms anyway. I mean, THX is still relevant in certain markets, but in terms of the AVRs, things have moved on. The processing power and everything's moved on, and the soundtracks have moved on from what we used to have. So I think we've covered everything that we need to cover on this subject, unless I've missed anything out, Steve or Ed.
Well, I mean, look, there's no, as is always the case with so many options in this world of ours, there's no one true correct answer, unfortunately, and it's going to depend heavily on, you've got to weigh up how much time am I using it in multi-channel versus how much time am I using it in stereo. Is there a single killer feature where actually I'll sacrifice another more mainstream item to have that single killer feature, and so on and so forth? I mean, I will say, just to be completely out there, I don't miss multi-channel. I watch films, I watch televisions via a 2.0 system. And do you know what? Just for the sheer hairs on your arm joy when I'm listening to it in 2-channel, I can forego not having bells and whistles when I inadvertently watch a film after.
Yeah, I think we have to caveat that with the fact that you
absolutely, it's a totally different set of priorities. But essentially, it's ironically the three systems that we have for review equipment, with the caveat that many of the parts are often here with the kind generosity of the people and the kind understanding of the manufacturers that supplied them initially. The actual pound cost values are not wildly dissimilar. They just demonstrate wildly different priorities as to how to spend the same sum of money, and you have to sit down and work out how much time you're diverting to each of those activities. And
I think, Steve, it's fair to say that in 2021, things have moved on quite a bit considerably when it comes to AVRs and the quality of the processing.
Oh yeah, this isn't me dissing them, to be very clear.
Yeah, I mean, I remember back in the day when AVRs were not good with music. They were maybe tuned to give an excellent performance from multi-channel, but audio was lacking. I think we've got to a stage now where I think manufacturers realise that there is an audience for both, and they try and be a bit more flexible in terms of how they tune the stuff, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely AVRs have come on leaps and bounds when it comes to listening to 2-channel hi-fi. And as you say, if you're going up to the higher end processors, Lindorfs, Trinovs, that kind of thing, then they can sound absolutely stunning. Obviously, it depends on what kind of application you pair them with, but yeah, at that price point, you definitely can run 2-channel and it can sound absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Now, talking about really expensive shit, nicely segueing into I've got to say, I've never spent any time with any of McIntosh's kit. I've always admired it though, and when seeing it in the flesh, you can understand why rich people spend a lot of money on Macintosh kits, and you can see why it's featured in lots and lots of films.
Yes.
If anybody's got a hi-fi system in a film, it's normally Macintosh gear because
unless they're villains, and often they have
yeah.
Meridian. Weirdly,
Right.
there's lots of Meridian.
Well, it's British, isn't it? So that's why you have Meridian.
Yeah. But no, you're absolutely right, Phil. I would like to stress, I did 5 reviews in December for January, and 4 of those reviews are for products that cost under £1,000. And then we let the budget slide a bit. And yes, as tested, the MA7200 is £9,500.
That sounds quite cheap to me.
Well, I mean, it's all relative, isn't it? Now, I won't. To discuss, we're not going to go overboard on lots of content that's in the review here. So I just want to it's interesting what you were just saying about the looks and the aesthetic. I got this amplifier in, and getting it out of the box nearly killed me. It is, I'm not making this up, it's screwed into its box, which isn't necessarily explained that well on the outside of the box. So that took a while to work out, and some herniation. And I got it out of the box, and there's this whole thing where you look at it and you assume it's going to be a relic because it looks like a relic. And it was here, I'm delighted to say, I got a full calendar month with it in and running. And I have to be honest, I'm a complete convert. I mean, yes, it's got buttons all over the place, and the controls are, and you look at it and you think, well, that's all mad, but it works beautifully as an experience to collate lots of different inputs, some digital, some analog, 2 turntables if the fancy takes you. It just,
you get a microphone.
I dare say it's doable. It's just brilliant. In operational terms, I'm a complete convert to how it uses it day to day.
I've always admired this kit, and like I say, I've always just seen it from afar. It's either been in films or I've seen it at CES when they've launched new products and whatever. And it just looks phenomenal, and I always equate it to Rolls-Royce or Bentley of the hi-fi world.
There is definitely an element of that, but in some regards, it's even more willful than that. You end up thinking about really niche manufacturers like Bristol and stuff like that, because I've raised this point before. Actually, this is the second Macintosh product we've reviewed on AB Forums. It looks retro to an extent, but even judged by that, Macintosh stuff has never looked like anybody else's. They just do what they feel like. I don't want to cover this in the copy because I went to the effort of trying to write it out in sentences that can be understood by humans. But if you look at the photo, there's the photo is showing in the podcast at the moment, and you can see these blocks halfway down the length of the amplifier. Those are autoformers. Macintosh still uses autoformers because they like what they do. And
I think you need to explain what an autoformer is.
Essentially, unlike the vast majority of solid-state amplifiers, the Macintosh has these autoformers which automatically match the impedance to a set of terminals on the back. So you've got negative terminals and then positive terminals for 4, 8, and 2 ohms, and it will essentially load match perfectly to those outputs constantly. So when you normally get figures for an amplifier, so it's 100 watts into 8 ohms, 200 watts into 4 ohms, and so on and so forth. This just generates 200 watts under any conditions, under any load, and it does so via these autoformers, auto load matching. And autoformers are huge chunks of copper alloy. They are enormously expensive and time consuming to make. Much of the cost of that amplifier is those big lumps halfway down the chassis, and it just means it's utterly unflappable. It doesn't really, short of trying to weld with it, I don't honestly know what you do to try and make it stop working. So that's what you're buying, is something which is just, it's an utterly, ironically, for something which looks the way it does, it's just a device where you forget about any of the mechanics of what it does. It just works, and it works beautifully. So yeah, I mean, it was a phenomenal thing. And there's other, I mean, just other little details. Those VU meters on the front, they're not decorative. I ran some tests, voltmeter. I had a friend involved who can count, because I've long admitted that maths is not my forte. Those VU meters are phenomenally accurate. They are, I mean, genuinely, they're telling you what the amplifier is doing to within, decimal points of a watt. So everything about it is just exquisitely well thought out. And then, dragging this back to AV forums rather than me having a congratulatory stereo moment. If you want, you can spec it with, it came with the basic digital board, which is extremely good. For a little bit more, if you want HDMI ARC on the back of your giant VU meter equipped amplifier, you can. It is a genuinely modern solution that just happens to look like that.
Is McIntosh, is McIntosh a US company?
Oh yes, yes. And they're still made in upstate New York.
Yeah, and I was curious because I was just looking while you were talking. I was looking at the McIntosh's website, and interestingly, their AV processor uses Room Perfect. So they must
interestingly, this is possibly not the time for this conversation, but there's the possibility for you gentlemen to look at some of the multi-channel stuff. Let's see how 2021 pans out.
They would have to get it back over my cold dead body.
you don't admit that on air. You
all right, okay, yeah.
I don't think you'd be able to get up the stairs, Phil.
Yeah, there is that point. Yeah.
Oh yeah, by the standard, just to be clear on this, by the standards of McIntosh, that 40 kilo amplifier is a mere baby. Some of their mono amplifiers are, as someone said, they have their own gravitational pull. I mean, you just put stuff in orbit around them. But if you want 1,000 watts into 1 ohm, stable, reliable, endless, McIntosh is the company that you go for. I hope you enjoyed reading the review as much as I enjoyed writing it. It was a brilliant thing to spend time with. But the thing is, it's not, I need to make this as clear as I possibly can. It's not a novelty product. The more time I spent with it, the more every single design decision they'd made perfect sense. So please don't view it as a curio. It's a genuinely clever solution, and it was what McIntosh did was a genuinely clever solution in the 1960s, and they've just evolved ever so gently, and it's still a perfect solution now. It's an absolutely outstanding thing.
Right, I think we need to wrap up hardware before we get too excited with McIntosh products.
Before Kaz goes to bed.
Just calls it a day. It's like, it's not happening.
Yeah, we have to talk about some movie stuff as well. But finally, a question from David Newman again. He says, will B&W 702 signatures do a center speaker and sub? Plus, what AVR from Denon would you go for? So the Bowers & Wilkins 702 signatures.
There is no center speaker for the signatures. They are stereo only. However, they're not so radically different from the standard 700 series that the center won't work. But then just to be difficult, obviously you cannot have the center in that rather splendid stripy wood. So you'll need to live with that as thing. But essentially, you wouldn't be so, because of the nature of what they've changed, the handover from left to right to center won't be won't be problematic. It just won't, the cut speaker physically won't look the same because it's not available in the same color finish. If you wish to take umbrage with that, you need to make it clear to Bowers and Wilkins, and make it clear to Bowers and Wilkins that if you can rustle up some orders for them for it. But the 700 series signatures, I did say this in the reviews, essentially they exist in part to remind everyone else that Bowers and Wilkins, when they put their mind to it, still makes great stereo speakers. So
and of course they now under new ownership as well now. So,
yes, although that said, they're now under new ownership from a company that does make a hell of a lot of AV receivers.
Yes, that's the point I was coming on.
I was just going to quickly put in though, because you said center speaker and sub. As far as subs go, with all due respect to B&W, I'd be looking at some a dedicated sub manufacturer for a sub, someone like SVS or someone like that. But there are better options subwoofer wise from other manufacturers.
Yeah,
a B&W speakers awesome. B&W subs not so much.
Yeah.
Okay,
think
so
that's a
hopefully
fair
that answers.
assessment.
Oh, which AVR from
AVR.
Denon?
Well, you didn't say price, so that doesn't.
8500. Yeah.
Because if you've got the
I'd
money, get the X8500. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But actually, I mean, Denon and Marantz possible gripes over number of 2.1 sockets aside, everything I've read from you guys reviewing them, you can't go too far wrong with them, in fairness.
No, they're absolutely brilliant. I think Marantz and Denon stuff
Denon AVR. They're awesome.
really good. I mean, I've got the 8500 here. It hasn't been used for
6500,
months.
if you don't need 13 channels and you haven't got the money for the 8500, the 6500 is also superb.
Yeah. But the 8500, I use it here to power my 4-ohm MK speakers, and it works just as well as power amped AV receivers, AV processors in this room. So, yeah, cracking.
Sorry, Adrian very quickly asked, what speakers will I match with the Macintosh? Adrian, the whole purpose of the Macintosh is you can match anything you want with it. I mean, unless you go bonkers and decide to resurrect a
couple
pair
of JBL Control ones.
A pair of, well, no, the whole purpose is the whole purpose of those autoform is it will drive anything. I mean, unless you suddenly get a pair of Apogee Scintillas or something like that, resurrected from the dead, they will. There's nothing they can't drive. But I mean, you've got to look to the classics. Honestly, McIntosh and Wilson. I've had McIntosh and Wilson demonstrations at a number of price points, all of which were not inconsequentially expensive.
Used to get partnered with electrostatic speakers.
They'll drive anything. And also, it's only fair for me to point out that at the moment, I say at the moment, now it seems they're now part of the same operating company as Sonos Faber. And I suspect that a big Macintosh amp and big Sonos Faber speakers, as well as looking absolute pornography, probably isn't going to sound bad either. So, that's going to be good.
Yeah, good stuff. Right. Have we got any questions we need to answer before we quickly go into to movies? We've still got 4 minutes left.
So 2 questions that I want to come back to. We're not going to do them this evening. There has been a question about equipment, racks and supports. If you genuinely feel, if feedback is that you'd like me to do either an article on it or just round up some options and so on and so forth, I'd be very happy to do that. It's just not really featured on the list of things that we've done, so on and so forth. And I'm not so far out of practice that I can't do both AV and stereo. And there was another question.
Are you considering taking these in for review, Ed? Is that what you're saying? Because they would make fantastic time-lapse videos of you trying to build them.
I've got quite a lot of practice making these things. As I remember, I used to have to assemble all the stuff for photography for a magazine, so I've done most of these. The other question that was cropped up was about wireless, in this case, wireless amplifier contacts and so on and so forth. Steve is not with us for the next podcast, so it's an extended session with me. I apologize in advance. In order to share the load, I want to talk about wireless, both in this context and a slightly wider one, because it brings Phil and Kaz into it, because I have some opinions about wireless and so on and so forth, and it's going to get covered and stuff like that. So please tune in next week, because there's much to discuss there.
Okay, good stuff. Just noticed there's something about an Orange Club biscuit. Not sure where you're going with that one, but anyway, it's time to move on and talk about software. So we're going to do that next.
Hello?
Sorry, it helps if I turn my microphone up, doesn't it? Those lip readers already know where I'm going with this. So Ed's album of the week, what is it, Ed?
Right, this will be quick. I'm sorry, we still haven't had an absolutely knockout launch in 2021. We're over a month in. So apologies to people who are a fanatical fan of this man. Stephen Wilson, he of Porcupine Tree, and he's contributed to about 800 other artists. Solo albums, he's done lots of those as well. Many of them are very prog. So this latest album, called The Future Bites, all in caps, incidentally, is not prog. It's got some strong electronic undertones and so on and so forth. I don't feel this is a great album, and I have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to annoy everyone who's a fanatical fan of prog Stephen Wilson without necessarily bringing on too many new converts for non-prog fans. That's Every Woman, for example. But the result, Future Bites, it doesn't overstay its welcome. 41 minutes long, which by the standards of Stephen Wilson is a blink of an eye. I don't think it's absolutely brilliant across every single track, but there are some seriously good songs on it. It is on all major streaming services. If you are a Qobuz or a Tidal user, it's available in spunky high resolution as well for you to enjoy under those circumstances. I think it's well worth 41 minutes of your time, and I suspect that one or two of you might pop some money down on it. It's worth it, if nothing else, for a personal shopper, which at one point intones the words organic LED television. So yeah, that's all good. That's the album of the week. I fervently hope that we have a killer release sometime in February for me to get excited about.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Right, let's move on and let's talk about some films. Kaz, you've been looking at a few different movies for us this week. And just to explain to listeners and viewers, we have made a few little tweaks to our film review roundups these days. So rather than spending a lot of time and writing 2,000 words on everything that you look at, you followed Ed's lead and you're doing some short form stuff.
Yes, I'm trying to keep it a little bit shorter, perhaps for movies that otherwise might not get a look in. They're still deserving of a shout out, but we can maybe cover a little bit more stuff if it's more short form and it's easily digestible. Particularly for those who would ideally like to get past the score but can't handle the word count. So I've done a
you saucy bitch.
done a few recently. I covered Palmer, which was another nice surprise on Apple. I have to say, I like almost everything that's on Apple. They still haven't got the quantity.
It is a rare. It seems to be a conscious decision, isn't it, that it's churning out a smaller quantity of quite good stuff.
Yeah,
rather than just here you go, have an endless tidal wave of mostly mediocre content. Good luck finding the gems.
Yeah, Netflix will just tip a truck on you, and you have to look through and see if there's anything in there worth recycling. And Apple, they don't even tell you it's coming either. You really have to be on your Apple TV and about to click on the Disney app, and then you notice that actually Apple has got a new film and give it a try. But it's always worth it. The latest one is Justin Timberlake, which it makes no sense that it was going to be good, but he's actually really good in it. And looking back, he is actually quite good in the roles he has taken. It's just he doesn't take many, and he doesn't always pick the best films. But he's very good in this. He's an ex-con after 12 years in prison, comes out trying to pick his life back together, and it's done in a very nice way that doesn't attempt to heavily play on your heartstrings or force the issue. And it's a very nice, reserved performance from a deeply haggard Timberlake, it's a good look for him. He could do with some more serious drama like this. I really enjoyed that. That's Palmer on Apple TV for those who don't even notice when new stuff comes, because it can happen. I think second season of For All Mankind is around the corner for Steve when he returns. They just don't advertise it. Netflix would have told you about this 6 months in advance, and
you do get the feeling though, Kaz, that their entire business model is the same as Apple Music. It's just busy just taking the edge off Netflix in the same way that Apple Music just denies Spotify enough critical mass to be fully viable.
It's odd. It's a really odd style. I applaud them, but I'm not entirely sure I understand why they don't try at least to promote their stuff a bit more, because it's good things, and I like Apple and I like their content.
It's quantity over quality, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and the fact is, when you load up the app as well, you're not sitting scrolling for half an hour trying to decide what to watch, because there's not a hell of a lot there to start with. So.
Yeah, and you can pick any of it and it'll be good.
The wrong way. I mean,
You're old. We're not going to pick you up on that. So.
No, I enjoyed Palmer. I thought it was an awesome film.
Yeah, it was, but it was a surprise. I'm
disappointed that Tom isn't on this podcast, because I was going to tell him that he'll be delighted to know that I've reviewed a turntable in the January reviews, and one of the records that I cited on that was the first Justin Timberlake album, Justified, which I've owned for years. I make no apologies for the fact, but I've decided that now I'm 40, I'm not going to start concealing my more peculiar musical taste to you on reviews. So look, in the same way that actually the turntable's been photoed with the Taylor Swift album on it. So screw you guys.
He doesn't.
I'm doing this.
He doesn't sing in this.
He's actually a bloody good actor, I think.
Yes,
I think given the right material. I mean, I remember him in Trouble with the Curve with Eastwood and Amy Adams, and I remember thinking at the time, he's really good. It's just it's got Clint Eastwood in it, so you don't really notice. I mean, there's Clint Eastwood there, and he's holding his own against him, but it's still a headlined Clint Eastwood movie.
And he's actually quite unsettling in the Social Network, isn't he?
Yes,
really,
he's fantastic. Sean Park.
He's very good as Sean Parker in that.
Yeah.
I wish he'd play a few more roles where because he needs to play sort of against type, if you like, playing sort of
like he does in this, like in
Palmer. He's playing an ex-con. He's a bit grizzled and this stuff. Whereas he's a really charming, good-looking guy. Give him a film where he can use his charisma a bit.
Yeah, I know, but didn't they do that with that
refusal
Ben
to be
Affleck
typecast,
movie, and it didn't really work. I've also got a lot of time for In Time, but I quite like.
He's good in that. He's good in that.
Isn't he in the Friends of Benefits with Mila Kunis as well? Or is that somebody else?
That is also him.
That's him playing to type, though. So if you want to watch that with the added benefit of Mila Kunis.
I've got to say, I've watched possibly the worst movie so far this year. It could be a little bit longer, which is Bruce Willis's latest. It's called.
Well, I could have told you that when you said it's Bruce Willis's latest.
I know it's called Anti-Life, and it's an apt title for the film. It's such a car crash of a movie.
He is absolutely the living definition of phoning it in now, isn't he?
It's ridiculous. There is a scene in it, and I've even described it in the review. There is a scene where it's about a bunch of people trying to survive the apocalypse on the planet by leaving the planet to go to a new home. And on the spaceship, there's an alien parasite that takes over people's bodies. And when you first discover it, in that typical scene where a bunch of dead bodies in the morgue come back to life, he's standing there. He's an ex-army veteran. He's supposed to be hard as nails. Everyone is running, grabbing weapons, trying to take on these guys. And he's just standing like in the corner of the room, and occasionally it cuts to him. And he looks really confused, like no one's given him his cue. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And he's just kind of looking back and forth. Absolutely no participation in the scene whatsoever. Could have not been on the set at the same time as the others.
Maybe he wasn't. Maybe they just shot him in the corner and said, we'll sort it out in the edit.
It's worth watching free when it comes to something, just to spot how awkward his acting in it is. It's a terrible car crash of a movie, and I like Willis. I mean, I saw his recent advert for Energon cubes. It was Duracell or something, wasn't it? It was batteries. He did Die Hard, didn't he? His son or his daughter tweeted about a new Die Hard movie, and it wasn't a new Die Hard movie. It was an advert for batteries where he plays John McClane, and he had a lot of fun in that. It looked like,
presumably because they got it shot in a day,
and they paid him like $5 million for
That's
it.
big
Yeah,
check.
sure. But I mean, I just don't get why he turns up and does these things.
Yeah,
No,
but I'm trying to remember. Was it the One Show or something? You had a real car crash of an interview when he was last in the UK, and it was something like the One Show or something like that. And I don't know why he went on, because he was so rude and obnoxious with the presenters, and he wasn't answering the questions that they were asking and so on. And he just came across as an absolute prat.
Does he need the money?
I don't know. I mean, they can.
God, man, just retire.
I mean, well, it's either that or the 9-film Netflix deal, just to keep Tom on his toes.
I mean, the Adam Sandler.
the Adam Sandler, yeah.
When studios won't make movies for cinemas with you anymore, go to Netflix.
I mean, in terms of finding new lows, wasn't he canned from the Expendables 3 because of his complete disinterest? So they found the almost slightly more interested Harrison Ford to take his place.
Yes. Yeah. I don't really know, but I was hoping. I know it's stupid. I was hoping for another Looper, because he hasn't done many sci-fi movies in his time. And
He threw you for a loop then, didn't he?
No, I should have just read the title. It's all
I think it was the fact he had Bruce Willis's name above the.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
let's be honest. Looper was about the last
Bruce Willis,
thing Willis did.
2021.
Yes.
No.
Oh, I know.
So watch Palmer. Don't watch Anti-Life. Is that what you're saying?
don't.
So, yeah.
Unless you're bored of life, in which case watch Anti-Life.
Go
and
nuts.
this time, I think it's Ed's fault for the news about the late passing, because he.
Well, I didn't look at him on. I didn't look at him on IMDb, but
you did watch The Enforcer.
And wasn't he 100?
No, not the Enforcer.
Magnum Force.
Who are you talking about?
Hal Holbrook.
Hal Holbrook. Yeah.
He was 95. Yes.
95.
And
I mean, this still, even in 2021, constitutes a good innings.
Yeah, it does.
yeah,
Should we be clear
95.
about-
And you know what? In that 95 years, he sported the same haircut regardless of fashion decades or changing times. I love Hal Holbrook.
It would
He's one of the
appear, just
great
looking at the
character
photos here, that the parting shifted at some point. He changed the parting side.
They might have
at some
just flopped
point.
that photograph for all we know.
Yeah, this is true, actually. So
He's awesome. He was one of the great character actors. He could play integrity like no one. I mean, if you watch, say, he's Deep Throat in All the President's Men, for example. He also plays the character, gives Charlie Sheen the sort of talk on integrity in Wall Street. Play that hands down brilliantly. But he also could play the villain, and he played villains who you kind of empathized with, and you thought, yeah, what? He's got a point. So, for example, in Magnum Force, yes, it's extreme, but you could buy into his theories. And in Capricorn 1, he's basically stuck in a hole and has to be the villain to get out of a problem he's in. And you empathize with him. He's the priest in The Fog, with the guilty secret about the town's history. How awesome guy. Loved Hal Holbrook.
And it must be said, I mean, I was looking at his resume. I mean, that's a hell.
You can safely do that now because he is dead.
Yes, a hell of a body of work to leave behind. So it done some good stuff. So yes, fairly well, Hal Holbrook. So all good.
Okay, moving things on. Disc review time, Kaz.
Sure. Yeah. Really quickly, I'll shout out to Muscle. I reviewed it as a movie because I didn't have the Blu-ray in time, but the Blu-ray turned up and it's very nice looking indeed. I'm going to mention it because
What is it?
It's here we go. It's Craig Fairbrass's latest
Thank
movie.
you. Enough. I'm off.
Yeah, it's tremendous. Really, really good. Yeah, it's black and white, shot like a Wheatley film. It's got a score by the.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Oh, there we go. 80s boy.
Absolutely.
I love the
Tremendous score, tremendous
Match
style. It really suits the black and white.
You're only picking it up
cinematography.
because he gave you a like. And
He did,
so
yeah,
on.
but he gave
Great.
me a like. He gave me
Yeah.
a like after I bigged it up. I mean, people are saying it's one of the best British films in a long time. I mean, I don't know whether I have isolated my British film category to be able to assess that, but it is perfectly possible that that's very true. It's about a guy who's having something of a midlife crisis. He's not doing well at his job or in his relationship, and he's just not got much going for him. And he starts going to a gym, and he bumps into Craig Fairbrass, who's this ex-military muscle builder who takes him under his wing and then slowly takes over his life. And it's a very scary role. I mean, thinking about it afterwards, Fairbrass doesn't ever resort to violence in it, and yet is desperately terrifying and very charismatic. I thought it was really good.
Is this the another argument that every single actor, however unlikely, has
Yeah, totally. I looked at-
great performance.
Yeah, I looked at his film history and I thought, what? I mean, since Cliffhanger, it's just a succession of straight-to-video performances, and you wouldn't expect it, but it's a very unusual role. He's not just a tough guy either. He's actually clearly a very flawed individual who's had his own abuse that's brought him that way, and he brings it to the fore like exquisitely. If you get the chance to watch it, Steve, I think you'd really enjoy it. And it's a rare film where the black and white isn't pretentious.
It's
it
like,
really works for it.
it just reminds me that what you're saying there, Kaz. At the weekend, I was inebriated, but not inebriated enough to watch the Deadpool. So I watched as the second film of an evening. I watched the original Expendables again, and obviously it's complete garbage. It's in the middle of it. It's got that Mickey
Rourke
monologue, which is like crikey Moses.
Yeah, it's a really good monologue.
Which is shot on a day off from Iron Man 2, but it looks.
He doesn't do any of the fighting or the shooting or anything,
He
and he has
delivers that
monologue.
speech in the middle of it. It's like Christ.
Really good. Yeah.
So it would, as I say, that there are no rules in this. Everyone's got something. I mean, obviously, this is not a comment against Mickey Rourke, because I mean the wrestler is unbelievable.
Yeah,
I'm not a laugh a minute, but I mean it's unbelievable. But yeah, everyone's got. I guess it just requires the right script, the right director, and just the right point in your existence to make it suddenly work.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I mean, Mickey Rourke's done.
Jean-Claude Van Damme did that with that monologue to camera in JVC.
Oh God, yes,
Brilliant.
that was tremendous. Yeah,
out of nowhere,
summed up just about everything horrendous in his career and life.
Yeah,
in
really
a
from the heart.
monologue. Oh my God.
Straight to camera,
and it,
like a single take, isn't it?
Yeah, and for me, it really made me reassess some of his movies during like his cocaine period, or during and like post. It's like
a lasting regret of mine that I don't get to call a portion of my output my cocaine
period. Yeah.
I'm not saying anything.
None of your reviews are they?
Steve Withers, the banking years.
But yeah, Muscle is our podcast competition.
Disc of the week.
So yeah.
Default.
Yeah. Well, it's a great score, and I have to say it's one of the most graphic. I don't know what to call it, but I'm going to call it. It's very loose, but sex scenes. I mean, I guess it's like a Gaspar or a orgy in it, which couldn't have been shot in color. It's just not what you expect in the movie. And it's do
the curtains go across and they go right time for the sex scene?
Absolutely no, it's absolutely completely as if you're on a lot of drugs watching an orgy.
I don't know, I have been on a lot of drugs. I'm not going to comment on the orgy bit, but
yeah, it's completely blindsides you.
Ed Selley, the orgy years.
Where can we watch this film, Cass?
Oh, now you're interested.
Yeah.
Enter the competition. I mean, everyone's done really
no.
badly.
Well, how do we? I mean, is it available? Is it gone straight to disc?
You can get it on digital, or you can get it straight on Blu-ray and DVD right now.
Right.
But
okay.
It's about £4 to rent. It's a tenner to buy digitally, and it's 12 quid for the Blu-ray.
I don't know if I'm going to buy
warn
it.
You though, Ed, that it's called Muscle. It's got an all-male cast, so the orgy may not be your cup of tea.
Mate, I am at the point of isolation where
you give it a go.
It's really very, very disconcerting. Like it's very well done. I mean, the score is phenomenal, and yeah, it's a dizzyfying sequence.
It's not just Barry White.
I mean, nope, not just Barry White.
No.
But I was interested in because they've done a bunch of scores.
Yes,
they say he.
Is it just he?
In fairness, it's one of those examples of a band where they whittle away at the original members until it's one bloke who was there originally, either on his own, doggedly refusing to release the name back to anyone else, or it's one bloke who's then just recruited a cast of confused 20-year-olds to keep things going.
No, he's always been one bloke. He just brings in collaborators, like Johnny Marr, collaborated for a couple of albums.
But I mean, I thought it was an excellent score, to the point where I'm going to hassle. I can't call her by her name, or she'll respond. But I'm going to hassle her and see what she can do for me later.
Is it on streaming services for us to enjoy?
I don't know. I don't want to ask her right now, but I'm hoping.
I mean, I'm reluctant to type muscle into Rune. I'm sure that just horrible things will come out of it. So
yeah, you have to dust off your bike.
You sold me though, Kaz. I think I'm going to check this out.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, for sure.
There you go.
Okay, so that's disc review, disc news. There's some interesting disc news that when I told Kaz about it, I think
made
you had a trouser accident, didn't you?
We talked about it last week.
I mean, I had no idea, and we talked about it, and I was absolutely dead set that given it was owned by Disney, it was going to be an Abyss situation, True Lies. I mean, that's what we compared it to. But after it went to Fox, didn't it? And Fox released it 4K remastered on Blu-ray like 4 years ago. Heat is now coming to 4K by Disney in May, alongside Speed, which I don't want to. I mean, obviously it overshadows it, but I'm going to be getting both of those.
Speed's an absolute classic. Yeah.
It is.
Yes, it is.
I watched it again the other day. I always forget just how astonishing the opening lift sequence is.
It's really,
how bloody good is that? And I was going to use a different adjective altogether, and then I reined myself in.
It's very, very tense. I absolutely love it, and I think it's mentioned on the comments thread, but I think the score's really good in that as well. Tremendous.
Also, I'd say that Keanu and
Hopper.
Sandra.
Oh, Keanu and Bullock.
Keanu and and I forgot her name.
Sandra Bullock.
Sandy. Sandy. Have fantastic chemistry.
They do. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Well, that was her breakthrough, wasn't it? Breakthrough.
She was paid $300,000 for it.
Yeah, she's really, really good in it. She's really good.
Yeah. Nice.
I prefer the bus. I thought the bus was the outstanding,
outstanding character actor, best supporting actor.
Absolutely nailed it.
This is tremendous news. I know we're not going to get all the cuts for Heat. I'm talking about now, and I know it's going to be whatever latest tinkered with version he comes up with. And it's, all I can hope is that they do a good job with the HDR. I'm not even hanging out for Dolby Vision, and they deliver the same 4K master that made for a really nice Blu-ray a few years ago. So I can't wait for that though. It's just after my birthday, so I'm a little bit gutted, but good job.
It's close, isn't it? And Gary Hall said, "Wish you're not in Demolition Man first." Yeah, but a breakthrough performance was in Speed. That's where she became a household name. But yeah, Demolition Man. Remember Laserdisc?
It's a great film, Demolition Man. I love it.
Yeah. I watched it the other day, actually. Again, I wasn't drunk enough for the Deadpool.
Yeah, good stuff. So you got that to look forward to. Are we doing some limited sets as well?
Yes, they are. Yes, we've got a couple of new Arrow releases. We mentioned earlier Battle Royale. Oh no, me and Steve were talking off camera. Battle Royale. Really gorgeous box set, ludicrously priced at 60 quid. Oh, sorry, it's 65 quid, but they've reduced it to 60 quid.
Oh, bargain.
So thank you
You are
guys.
getting two cuts of both films.
You are getting Battle Royale and the inferior but watchable Battle Royale 2 in a really stupidly oversized box set.
Early bird
pictures.
price.
Yeah, it's and then later on they'll do a cheap version. But I mean, Arrow.
Why would you get the Blu-ray at 55 when the UHD is 60?
That's an interesting question,
choice.
isn't it?
Because it will include. Oh, maybe it doesn't include the Blu-ray. I can't remember now. Some of the Arrow stuff they don't. It's either the 4K.
Right. Okay.
£55 for Donnie Darko. I don't mind Donnie Darko.
I mean, I like Donnie Darko,
as well.
But I don't £35 like it. I'm sorry.
I've ordered that as well.
I mean, they're going to be gorgeous sets. The nice thing is with Arrow is that they're doing these unusual niche titles and they're serving up lavish box sets. I mean, I'm not complaining that Heat's coming to 4K, but I wish it wasn't Disney. I wish it was somewhere like Arrow, that they would, or Studio Canal would pick it. And the same for Speed. If Studio Canal, after they did all those Carolco ones, picked up Speed and did a really nice set, slung Dolby Vision on there and a bunch of extras no one had seen before, it would be really something special. I am grateful that they're coming out. I just, Disney, really?
I think you've just got to take what you get these days.
I know.
Physical media.
Just do you not think that they're interested in making money? Couldn't they make this extra effort? Because Arrow charged 60 quid for a Battle Royale box set that sells out. So why don't they charge a bit more and do a lavish Heat set with like 3 cuts on it, or do a nice Speed box set?
Because after you've bought it, it gets a bit loose as to who else's. Unfortunately, I'm only being partially facetious here. It's interesting to watch how the small record labels have adjusted how they release stuff, Kaz, because even when we're dealing with big ticket re-releases, there are certain bands where there is a fan set who will pay out for. I mean, some of I'm going to choose my words carefully, but some of the recent New Order re-releases are scandalously priced, but it would appear that there is an army of New Order fans willing to pay for it. Other things, the fan set want either new material or something done remastered to the eyeballs, but if you put it in a fancy box, they aren't going to pay you for it. So essentially, I think what you're looking at here is a variation on that theme. So releases are going to be cut, not necessarily literally, but released and presented in a way that works to both the clientele of the film and the label.
Okay, I hear all of that. I just don't see the downside to Arrow's version of releasing a 60 quid box set, and then they will 3 months after that's sold out, which it does and has made them conservatively 100 grand. They sell the standard edition, which is the same price that they're going to release Heat-Ass at
because those are numbers for Disney that don't even register. So for the moment, they're still looking at a slightly more mass market thing, and to move over to the Arrow business model is an admission of, and you have to be careful because it's an admission that you as disc buyers are literally just a cult.
I would think that that's pretty par for the course with 4K.
Well, okay, it would appear that certain companies. I mean, given that we'd all but written off Disney for producing any of these things at all, for the moment, just look on the bright side, because it does give you a degree of mainstream exposure. And I remind you that my niche Anaraki medium, the means to play them can be made by men in sheds. UHD players cannot be made by men in sheds. So you need someone to stay interested in making the damn machinery.
And the last new machine made was back in 2018.
So yeah,
no, the last players to come out were the low end Panasonics.
What about the Pioneers?
No, they were 2018.
Okay, fine. Well, yeah. So my point stands. As I say, my niche medium is cottage engineering. Yours is not. So,
well, it's good news that Disney Fox are releasing discs again, because obviously not so long ago we were talking about, are they going to just ditch physical media at all? Since we're talking about new releases coming up, this is courtesy of Bill Hunt at Digital Bits. Godzilla, the 2014 version, is coming out 23rd of March, as is Disney's Pixar's Soul on the 23rd of March. And apparently in May, we're going to get American Werewolf in London, Animal House, and The Sting.
Nice.
American Werewolf in London is another version of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it came out on Blu-ray through Arrow last year, I think it was.
Right. I thought there was a 4K already.
No, not.
Is there not? Yeah, right.
There was a Blu-ray based on a 4K remaster, restoration, but it looks like it's actually going to bring out on 4K disc as well.
Okay, so at least we're still getting some physical media.
Yes.
I guess they have to jump on it at the minute because we're all stuck indoors and
it's a sensible decision.
Buying stuff. Yeah.
Well, no, absolutely.
It's the perfect time.
I'm glad they haven't stuck to just releasing it on, what is it called, Star, just to confuse us with stars. Disney Star.
I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it, but I'm glad they haven't just gone, hey, well, we're releasing.
I still just give me all the air crash investigations, and I will pay you your tithes indefinitely.
I was feeling quite low today. Actually, I've been feeling low a few days, but I was particularly today. I was feeling quite low. You know what cheered me up? I went and watched a couple of episodes of Air Crash Investigation. Nothing cheers me up other than
die in a fireball.
Yeah, exactly. I could have been on that plane that just flew into the side of a mountain, but I'm not.
So, there you go. Whatever it takes. So, but yeah, I'm seriously dragging this back. I'm looking forward to Star. I will pay the extra money for Star. Disney, ironically, I'm genuinely prepared to say that Disney. I mean, Netflix produces a huge amount of content. I don't watch that much new Netflix content.
I don't either. Yeah.
Disney has genuinely done the best release cost balance exercise of all of the video streaming services for me so far.
I certainly think I get more value for money through Disney Plus, what I paid for it and what I've actually got access to, and the quality as well, because almost everything is 4K HDR.
I mean,
apart from-
half of me, I'm not going to lie, the simple joy of being able to watch almost any Simpsons episode at the drop of a hat. I mean, I can remember going, God, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? You know, I'm assuming that Sky might do it as a limited thing at some point. But the simple joy of just being able to watch any Simpsons episode on its own has been magnificent. And as you say, the quality of so many other things, where it's there, it's normally in pretty damn good quality, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah,
yeah.
and
Well,
I will sign up for another year unhesitatingly.
Yeah, I will be as well. And talking about Disney Plus, WandaVision. So we're up to episode 4 now, Steve, is it?
Yeah.
It is, isn't it? 4. Well, again, no spoilers or anything, but we were having this discussion on Monday. You absolutely, because I was going to put it off. I wasn't going to watch anymore till the end because I thought it was going to stay on the course that it set itself. But I guess what we're saying is, or what you said to me, and I think it was absolutely bang on, was the first 10 minutes of episode 4 should have been the first 10 minutes of episode 1.
Yeah, they should have cut up episode 4 into 3 10-minute segments, and then so episode 1 should have been the first 10 minutes of episode 4, and then 10 minutes of mucking about in a stupid sitcom, recreation, and then the next 10 minutes of episode 4 should have been the first 10 minutes of episode 2, and the same for 3, and therefore you kind of getting some main story, but also because I get the jokes, after 5 minutes of episode 1, I'm like, yeah, I've got the joke and I'm bored of it now. And by episode 3, it was like, oh yes, I really have got the joke now, and it's not funny anymore. So yeah, episode 4 felt like a Marvel movie.
It did, yeah.
Proper Marvel series. This is what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And they better be doing more of this from now on. If they start going back to
if it is the most expensive TV series ever made, you assume that they might be. Just throwing it out.
I was wondering why. I think I said to you, why come no one's ever mentioned Sword before anywhere in the MCU up until episode 4? And I realized the reason that Sword hasn't been mentioned up until now is because Sword was first introduced, I think, by Joss Whedon, of all people, in the X-Men comics. So technically it was part of the X-Men universe and therefore part of the Fox deal. So until they bought Fox, they couldn't mention it. That's why it suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It was like, was it all
ready to go?
We've mentioned it before.
Yeah. Okay. So that's all we're going to mention, because otherwise if we keep talking about it, we're going to give
a bit spoilersy.
And I don't want to do that, because I think I think there's enough there for people to get hooked now that it's starting to move on a little bit. So what else have we been watching? I watched that DeLorean documentary that you mentioned last week when we were on air. It's the same story being told. I've seen this story umpteen times now. There was a couple of films released last year. I mean, basically about him and how he was struggling for cash, and he was roped into this drug deal and all that. You all know the story about DeLorean. And there wasn't anything really that new about this one. So if you haven't seen any of the DeLorean stuff and you're interested in the story, it's worthy of watching. But I think because it's a subject matter I know quite well now, because I've watched so many different interpretations of the story and what happened, it's just another one to add onto the pile, basically, for me. But it was well done, it was well put together, and it does tell the story, and it doesn't take any sides. It basically presents the facts and lets you make your own mind up, which a good documentary always does.
Better than that.
And Expanse season 2, really enjoying it. I think it's fantastic TV. I think it's really strong. And again, I'm glad I left it to you guys to watch it all first and make sure that it's actually worth me wasting my time on it. But yeah, it's a good waste of time. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I'm piling through them at the minute. So hopefully I'll be up to episode or season 5 very soon. So
well, as soon as we finish this podcast, I'm going to go and watch the last episode of season 5.
Right. Okay.
Keep that to yourself.
Yep, it's really good. So that's what I've been watching, and there's still stuff piled up that I'm going to watch, like Cobra Kai and so on. I need to get into start watching that. And we mentioned Apple earlier on. I haven't watched any of the Apple stuff. I really wanted to see Greyhound and so on. And there's That one For All Mankind. I think you've recommended that one,
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah, that's good.
So going to get stuck into them as well over the next few weeks. So that's what I've been watching, and all on the projector. I may say I haven't been watching any of this on the TV.
Skills.
Making use of the projector and the Atmos sound system. Kaz, we know what you've been watching because you've been telling us all about it.
Yeah.
Ed, you been watching anything interesting?
I haven't watched anything new, but can I tell you what I have been doing? No more than an episode a day. Amazon still has every episode of Futurama, and I haven't watched some of those for donkey's years, especially the early episodes. I've seen that. I had forgotten just how much of a labour of love that
the early seasons were really good. I've got to say.
Well, I mean, when it was resurrected for about the 8th time. I mean, things, there were some catches and so on and so forth. But the first couple of seasons, just the sheer pile on references and some of the dialogue work is just absolutely outstanding. And what prompted that, and if I can remember, I'll throw it into the comments, was there was a real breakdown of the episode Jurassic Bark with Fry's dog, where the ending, which just drives people into emotional shreds. And just the sheer layer of references and work and stuff that goes into it, absolutely magnificent. And interestingly, the link that's just come up in the thing is exactly the point where it goes wrong. The full length movie episodes were dire. So that after that it goes. When they went back to short episodes, it was okay, but just Amazon's got all of them. Just revel in how good the first couple of seasons were, if you're of a mind to do so. Otherwise, I've just been listening to lots and lots of music because it keeps me sane. So I can't add any more to television stuff.
Right.
Sorry,
Steve.
I watched on Netflix. Speaking of Netflix films, The Dig, which I've thoroughly enjoyed, with Ray Fiennes and Kerry Mulligan, about digging up the
This is the one that's based on
burial,
a true story, isn't it? World War II. Yeah.
Just before World War II kicked off. It's a Sutton Hoo archaeological dig, and it's a really lovely film. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Lots of lovely shots of the English countryside in the summer, which makes you sort of pine for the summer. But that was great. I started watching season 2 of Snowpiercer. They must have not. I don't know whether we got season 1 late or they knocked this off bloody quickly, because season 1 of Snowpiercer only finished about 8 months ago. But I'm quite enjoying that. And I decided to give it a go because it started last week. Resident Alien. It's a new series. It's on Sky or Now TV, depending on how you watch it, with Alan Tudyk playing an alien, as the title might suggest. I'm quite enjoying it. I've only seen one episode so far. It's only been one episode so far. I'll give it some more time, but I would pretty much watch Alan Tudyk do anything.
Yes, he's actually one of our underrated gems.
Yes.
He's great in Doom Patrol, wasn't he?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you gotta get on to Doom Patrol. You'd love him in that. He's the main villain in that.
Does he at any stage in the first episode say he's a leaf on the wind? No.
He does not, but he's playing an alien, obviously, who looks human, although he doesn't actually look human.
So playing himself.
But his delivery it's just superb. Basically you totally buy this is not a human being, even though they look like human, but the way he just talks and acts, and brilliant. He's such a great actor. I just love him. He's really, really funny. So I'll
during a low point over Christmas. During a low point, Steve, over Christmas, I actually paid money to. I didn't rent it. I bought it because the difference was £1. I thought, well, this might happen again. I bought Dodgeball, and I'd forgotten. Steve, it's just really funny. The sheer joy of Steve the Pirate. Is. And he's good in A Knight's Tale as well. I mean, that's I actually thoroughly enjoy that film, especially as it has Ian McShane smiling and just then dying. Hello, can I have my check, please? I'm going to smile and then. No, it's not Ian McShane. It's the other bloke who looks like Ian McShane but bigger. That's how much attention I've paid.
Yeah, good stuff. Excellent. So if you enjoy.
Sorry.
If you enjoy movie chat and all the rest of it, we do have a movies podcast starting this month. It's going to be around on the 3rd Monday of the month. and it's an opportunity to let Kaz speak. So Kaz will be speaking a lot more on the movie. Well, I say that, but I think Tom's going to take over that. Actually, I don't think you'll get a word in edgeways, to be honest with you, Kaz. But and Kumari as well is joining us. So the first time that Kumari's been on the podcast as well. So that is happening this month on the 15th. So Monday the 15th. It's starting a half an hour later, so 7:30. We kick off with that one. So that's Monday night, the 15th, for the first AV Forums Movies podcast. So tune in for that one. If you liked this one, you could leave us a like. As I see there's lots of you watching at the moment, so if you wouldn't mind just hitting the like button if you have enjoyed this evening's episode, it is appreciated. And obviously thank you to everybody who has become a patron or donated this evening. That is really welcome, and it really is appreciated as well. Thank you very much for that. Podcast competition, Kaz.
Sure. You can win a copy of Muscle on Blu-ray. And if you want to, you can use the following question to select the correct answer, or you can guess. The question is, who directed Muscle? And with that question, the answer should be really simple. But without that question...
Without the question, it's a bit more random.
Yes.
Or a lot more random.
I just realised, I'm not going to, why the doing the music to it.
Okay.
It's his brother directing, isn't it?
I don't ask this as a rhetorical question.
Brother,
I haven't committed my 80s bands and all of their relatives to memory.
No, okay, I'm reaching a bit here, but Matt Johnson is the main guy. Yeah, and Matt Johnson is the guy who's the. So I think they might be related. I think that might be the connection.
Okay.
Yes, he's got 3 brothers, Eugene, Andrew, and Gerard.
There you go.
Boom. Nice.
Well, there we go. We've solved that mystery.
And on that bombshell,
If it wasn't for
I want to go and watch The
kids.
Expanse. Can we get on with this?
You're the one that's talking. So that's it for the podcast this week. My thanks to Ed Selley.
Nobody pays any attention to you unless you swear every other word.
Kaz Harlow.
Double dumbass on you.
And Steve Withers.
It's where they keep the nuclear vessels.
If you enjoyed the podcast, then please do give us a like and subscribe to the channel. We're not far off 100,000 subscribers. It really would be great if you like the channel, if you would subscribe. That would be appreciated.
And if you're that 100,000th, you'll get nothing.
Because we won't be able to keep track of it. But
yeah, we won't know.
Yeah. But if you could help us get there, it would be appreciated.
Join us on the journey.
Yeah. Well, we're not too far away. There's only 4,000 of you.
No, 3,900, 96.1.
Oh, yeah. I missed that. Anyway, please like and subscribe. And, of course, hit the notification bell. You can also follow us on Twitter. So I'm at Phil Hinton. Steve is...
At Stephen Withers.
Ed is...
EJ Selley.
Kaz is...
At home.
And, of course, you can follow AV Forums at AV Forums. If you like Instagram, Ed is...
EJ Selley.
And I am at Phil_AVF. Steve is...
53, so give me a break.
I won't bother asking Kaz.
No.
Also, bookmark AV Forums for latest reviews, news, and videos. And of course, leave us a 5-star rating on whichever service you listen to us on. Like I say, 90% of you are listening on the audio only version. So if you do like it, then please leave us some feedback with that. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you again next Wednesday.